Roll call?
Trubush.
Yes.
Van Blarcom.
Yes.
Thompson.
Here.
Leonard.
Yes.
Lamb.
Here.
Manner.
Yes.
Elkin.
Here. All right, the first item up for discussion is discussion on the ambulance service merger.
Okay, I guess I'll maybe start with this. So thank you, Nikki, for coming. And so we're kind of at the end of this process. I was present at the most recent ambulance committee, I guess you'd call it, the Amory EMS and the Northwestern Municipal EMS. Or excuse me, that's what we're going to be naming it to, right?
It
was Northern. Yeah, so it was the whole group together. And we've reviewed the proposed bylaws and contracts, and we're to the point where all the municipalities that are listed on that contract, the bylaws, under page 2, are the towns and villages and city that will be included in that merger. Has there been any updates or changes to that at this point in time?
I've heard from probably 3/4 that have approved it.
Okay. And so we're at the point that we as a city need to approve the merger to go through, or I don't know what. So I think, Nikki, would you mind giving me kind of a little bit of the history? I know Rick's been very involved. This was actually my first meeting at one of the ambulance committee's meetings. So I know Rick's been uber involved up until this point. So do you mind just giving like the quick synopsis of why, where, how, et cetera?
Sure.
So everybody, because we have a couple new members, are aware of what's actually happening.
Sure.
Could you step up to the mic so we can hear you? Thank you.
All right. So back in 2019, the manager at the time, Rayanne, was leaving Northland Ambulance, and I was asked then if I would take over managing the service kind of as an interim till the board figured out what they wanted to do. At that time, Rayanne and I had on and off over the years talked about how our services were so similar that if we ever felt like, merging would be the right thing, that we would bring it up to the board. And at that time, she brought it up to the board and said, look, I don't know if you're going to find anybody to manage the service. Maybe it's time we look at this. So both the boards got together, they formed committees, they got together, and over the course of 2 years, they got information from billing company, they got information, we use Carlson SV as our for our accounting and our auditing. They put out a 3-year projection for us, and we really looked at areas that we could save money by becoming one unit. And at the end, both boards determined that it did make sense, that we would be able to cash in on some of the efficiencies by merging. One of the biggest is by having one manager instead of paying for 2. Being able to purchase things at kind of as a group versus, as one can also make a difference. And also having a lot of our preventative maintenance contracts, instead of having 2 separate, having one contract and then just adding the equipment on makes a huge difference for cost. So that kind of got us to this point. Lots of, back and forth with bylaws and contracts and just kind of learning that whole process. Both boards voted on a name, and Northwestern Municipal EMS was the chosen name by both boards. So that's where we're at today. Unless you have anything to add, Keith?
Just, it's been run as a
basically emergency service for over 2 years very smoothly. Nikki's been running both, so it's not going to be a huge logistical change. It's just going to basically be a legal change and a change in name and continue as we're operating.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Vic, but at the end of this calendar year, we are no longer going to be affiliated with Health Partners.
That's correct.
So that is also a big emphasis as to why this is happening at this point in time. And Nikki hopefully has found somebody to.
Yes, a very, very exciting. We do have a potential medical director that hopefully we'll be meeting with the next couple of weeks. And then we're working out different places to order supplies to get the best price. We're part of the WEMSA, which is the Wisconsin EMS Association. So we get buying discounts through them and kind of tapping into those resources that we've had. But, you know, through Health Partners, we were able to get better prices. So we just have to do shopping or, do some shopping around and find the best prices that we can to keep going. So.
I'm just going to throw some things out there. Just, I guess I'll be the one that talks.
Okay.
Some of the questions that have been posed to me is currently our per capita is between $13 and $14, and for Amer residents that will remain the same.
Correct.
And the discussion that I have been involved in is that there are other municipalities close in this area that are paying a fraction of that. Based on their affiliation with a different hospital and or a larger ambulance service, which is coming out of the Twin Cities, doesn't have the hubs in the area, and so on. So I guess the question that has been asked of me, how can they get their services for far less than what we are currently paying? Because it doesn't appear as though we're going to have any change in our per capita
So
with this merger.
we can't say for 100% that we're going to be able to, I mean, the industry as a whole changes from year to year. However, with that being said, if you look to the south, yes, their per capita is a lot less, but you can't geographically look at area to area. And the reason for that is if you look like Richmond Ambulance, for instance, they have a lot of people and they have a lot of younger people that don't utilize ambulance service. So they're able to keep their per capita a lot lower, cash in on receiving per capita, and then their call volumes are very similar to ours, but their per capita rate or their per capita or the people they serve is a lot higher. So there's different dynamics that we have to be really careful of when we're taking one area and comparing it to another. The other thing is yes, so to the other areas in Polk County, they're affiliated with another hospital. They're keeping their per capita very low. Now they believe that the person that uses the ambulance should pay for it. Yes, there's some truth to that. However, there's also some truth where, I would expect half of the people sitting in this room have private insurance, and private insurance, as we know, is high deductible plans. The problem is, so if you put that money towards the user, they're going to charge double what we're charging as a municipal ambulance service. So if we're charging $2,100 for our base rate, they're charging close to $4,000 for their base rate. And with a high deductible plan, which somebody like me, I have, my insurance company is going to look at that. And there's this clause that's called usual and customary. And my insurance company is going to come back and say, this is outside of the usual and customary charges. We're only going to pay X number of dollars, whether it's a high deductible plan or you have a regular insurance plan. So you get a $5,000-6,000 ambulance bill, they're going to pay $600 of it. Now you as the consumer have to come up with the rest of it. Yes, you can go through the appeals process and you can go through all that, but that's a lot of work, and that's where it's not fair to the consumer. And that's where having our prices, yes, a little bit higher from a per capita standpoint, allows us to keep our prices down a little bit more. So we don't usually get those people that call me up and say, oh, my insurance company turned it down because you guys are billing this outrageous amount. No, I'm getting phone calls from these other areas wondering, what do you guys charge? And then I get, now what do I do? Because they're only paying this X percentage of the bill. So that's where the differences are. in a nutshell. So,
Can I point out, we've been at $14 for, I don't know, at least 4 or 5 years. We're not changing that. It's $14 for 2023. There's no plan to raise it in the future. We don't know what the future is going to bring, but it's what you're paying now. And it's going to stay the same next year.
and one other thing too, so the Towns Association, I don't know if any of you follow what the Towns Association did this past year. One thing I think is really exciting is they went to bat for municipally owned ambulance services. And one of the things that there's a program out there, and to keep it simplistic so you understand, basically what happens is if you are a government-owned or municipal-owned ambulance service, the Medicare rate in Wisconsin, or the Medicare, what you receive, okay? What happens is they take a whole year of let me see, how do I explain this? So all the ambulance services in Wisconsin, they separate from private to government. The private ones, whatever they received from Medicaid for a calendar year, they're assessed a certain percentage of that. Now, that money doesn't actually physically come out of any bank account and go into another bank account, but it's assessed to them individually. Then what happens is that money, so to keep it easy, we'll say $1 million, is then turned around and given to the federal government. The federal government, Department of Health, then matches that $1 million or whatever that number is. And that money then goes back into the state account. Then they turn around and they pay out a percentage back to all of the municipal services based on what we provided for Medicaid recipients. So the people or the services that are considered private, they also get some back, but their original assessment comes off the top, so they get less. So as a municipal owned service, we fall under that government sector, and we're going to be getting some nice reimbursement back, which will help us. Our billing company looked at it in Amory alone. I mean, potentially from looking at previous years' numbers, we could get about $50,000 back in our budget, and that's just Amory. So, I mean, if this works out and pans out, maybe we can look at dropping our per capita in the future, and so gas prices and everything else doesn't keep going up, but that is the hope.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Some of the bigger issues that the ambulance services have, and it's not unique to Amory by any means, I was told 6 months ago by somebody that the ambulance world in Polk County is at crisis mode, and I'm tending to believe that it's hard to find volunteers.
Mhm.
The call numbers are increasing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And something needs to happen, because I don't think you can sustain it for the future.
Exactly.
So this merger, how is this going to improve our employee issues, recruiting, retention, training, et cetera, et cetera?
So for Amory, not that we're immune to it, but we're paying regular wages. One of the things that we did in Northland over the last 2 years, where they had Frederick and Luck bases. And in order to consolidate and be able to utilize staff at one location, and their call volumes, being able to have one truck respond to the majority of the calls, we have now, we no longer have a Frederick base, we just have a Luck base, because they're paying on and own that base. And they were 6 miles apart. So logistically, it made more sense to put everybody at one location. So we have one primary truck with a backup truck. Now, we don't always have a backup crew, and that's part of that staffing issue. But our hope is we're paying regular wages for that first out truck, and we're not having any issues staffing that first out truck. We had situations prior to this where we would have a few hours here or shift here that we were out of service. Now we're not. So that has helped us. So by being able to pull people from the Twin Cities, which is where we're able to recruit mostly from, paying regular wages has made a huge difference. And then our goal is to keep boosting wages. So You know, that's the only way we're going to be able to bring people in. One of the things we are looking at with losing our HR services, there's a company that provides benefits just to EMS services. And so we're looking at being able to provide more benefits to all of our staff.
Are there any other consolidations that could potentially take place? Where you got Luckett and Frederick as one now, are there any other locations?
So right now we just have Amory, then in Luck, so which covers then a pretty decent area. So from a location standpoint within our areas, no. But there's some other staffing changes that we can make, and we've talked to the state about different ideas, you know, moving forward. But we don't want to make everything at all the changes at once. We want to look at the plans that the state has proposed and see what would work out best for us. So there might be some opportunities to shift, like we have 2 medics on, to shift one of our medics up north. And because one of the things we want to do is provide paramedic level service at the north end of the county. So
Paramedic service is expensive.
it is expensive. Mhm.
And money is an issue. So transfers,
Mhm.
so sending people to the cities and whatnot.
Yep.
Are we going to continue that?
We are.
What's the status of that going to be, I guess?
So our plan is to continue because that's what pays the bills. So in 4 or 5 years ago, when I did an assessment with our billing company, the average reimbursement for a 911 call was like $340 some per 911 call. And for a transfer, the average back then was $900 per call. So that's how we maintain our stability is by.
And are we making that $900 on a transfer back, or are we getting less than that on the transfers?
So that was the average. So we, you know, definitely can check it again. Since then, we've able to take critical care transfers. So I would expect that number is a lot higher. What's nice about transfers is Medicare pays for the full mileage, where with 911 calls, they stop at 17 miles. So it's kind of goofy that way too. So that's why there's a disparity in the reimbursement too.
Because my concern is if transfers are making money and paying the bills, then why are we not flush with money? You know what I'm saying? It seems like we're either right at the line or we're running in the red a little bit.
Because we have to have a 911 crew available.
Mhm.
So we're paying 2 crews, so that's why. And the hospitals don't want to wait for us to call a crew in. And with all of our staff, I have staff that come from Eau Claire, I have staff that come from the Twin Cities. They're not going to wait an hour for people to come in. So, yep.
We're really not running in the red or struggling at all. We've paid off a significant amount of debt the last 2 to 3 years. In fact, the municipal ambulance portion of it, out of Amory, our overall debt is down to, I think it's $113,000 whole. That's building and machines, everything. So it's not like we're struggling. The last 3 years have been really good.
How much debt does Northland ambulance have?
How much debt? Well, they have, second here, I got that. Their total debt is, most current statement was 275,000, and Amory is just shy of 114. But consider that they have a new ambulance on that, which we will add next year to this one. So really, the two are fairly even. And as far as property and assets, it's they've got more assets because their buildings worth more, and they've got a new ambulance, so a little more debt, a lot more assets.
And then what guarantees of service are we going to have? Reading through your bylaws and contract and all that, it's a lot of, we will pay this, we will pay that. Is there any guarantees of service to the city of Amory?
Other than
we have to have a 911 rig on, and I understand that.
Other than,
What I don't
my-
want to see is our rigs running calls up in the Northland.
oh, no,
area.
no, and
Because
that,
their area, just for the record, was all the way into Burnett County. That's
Oh,
a
yeah.
long ways,
oh, yeah,
and it's a lot of miles in between, and
oh,
you know,
yeah.
as I sit here as a city council person, our obligation is to the city of Amory. It's
Right.
not to the rest of the district.
No. There's no, other than if their truck, you know, a truck's broke down, would, you know, now we still have an extra truck, would we shift a truck up there? Yeah. Would we shift staff up there? Yes, but we still have to maintain legally, we still have to maintain our service area. And we're not, it has to be the closest truck. So if there's another call that comes in luck and they can't take it, it has to be the closest truck. It can't be Amory. So that's not good patient care and patient advocacy, so.
So is that going to be a burden on the other ambulance services up there?
I don't see why not. I mean, because nothing's gonna change from a staffing situation of what's going on now. What we have now.
I just hear ambulances being dispatched to calls all over the place.
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah,
And it's not a once in a while thing. It's very routine.
oh, yeah.
You guys are going to Osceola, Osceola's coming here.
We go to St. Croix Falls, we go
Yeah.
to Balsam Lake, we go, yes.
So-
So it's, I mean, and there is a certain amount of mutual aid that's involved in this job.
Absolutely.
I mean, you have to.
I mean, I guess the question, the overall or overarching question I have is this what's best for the city? Because
I
that's-
don't-
That's my responsibility.
Yep, no, and it's a
So,
fair question, but I don't anticipate there's going to be any changes than what you've been seeing for the last, well, since we went paramedic, so 8 years, 7, 8 years. So,
Do you have more thoughts, questions?
go on. No, I'm good for now.
Anyone else have thoughts or questions? A couple things as I looked at the contract, there's no tie into the bylaws, and the bylaws are really where the nuts and goods are of what's happening.
right.
And there's no tie to that out of the
So
contract.
the state of Wisconsin EMS office requires a contract. So that's the only reason there's a contract. So the attorney took then some of that information to put as part of the contract for the E EMS.
Okay, so then how is it that you're being held to the bylaws by us? If we're signing the contract, we're not signing the bylaws.
No, you
correct?
should be signing both. Yep.
Location, so Amory will always be a location, as it sounded like that's our
Yes.
south
Yes.
piece. And as I read the contract also, it looks like we have to notify within 1 year or greater than 1 year if we want to get out of the contract, but Northwest can shut down at any time and it would be effective that next December, the closest December to that, right? So you could say in November, we're closing down and be done. And it's not, I'm a contract nerd, so I'm looking at this from a, what's going to happen if that happens?
Right.
And
Yeah.
But the ambulance services have operated for 60 or 70 years without incident, and the
I think my bigger concern is that we have to notify greater than a year, whereas you don't have any
Right.
limitations.
Right.
I think a year is too long. If we wanted to back out, I would hate to say backing out now, we can't actually back out until 2024.
So all of the services in the area, at least Polk County and North, are all 5-year contracts. So we were at 6 months prior with our current contract. And the board felt because everybody else is increasing to 5 years, that a year.
That they
then
have
would
to
be
notify that 5 years from now, we're going to get out of the contract.
Right. You can't get out till the end of that 5 years.
Well, and it also has to do with budgeting purposes as well, because it's based on population and budget figures per capita, what's spent in that calendar year. In order to have, all of the information correct, you have to give them ample notice that you're gonna get out because you're basing it on the prior year's population, correct?
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight that's
Right.
one thing I saw. The other thing that I saw about was about operating expenses, and there's nothing in the contract that offsets the income. So according to the contract, we have to pay 100% of the operating costs, regardless of how much income is coming in. That's what I'm reading in section 6 there. I didn't see any
Contract in front of me, but, the city doesn't pay any of the operating costs. It pays per capita each year.
right.
That's assessed, and that's it, and you will be informed as you have been, you know, for all the time I've been on board, which is 16 years or something. We notify you in August or September what the per capita will be the next year.
Right.
This year, we're saying it's $14 next year. You're not obligated to pay more than that for things.
Okay, so then going down to the next point is if it states in here in the contract that if we don't cover enough, or not enough was collected to cover, then that just gets added into the following year. There's no provision if more than what's needed is covered. How does that work, right? So the per capita costs, operating costs
What
are,
we've been doing with extra money is paying down debt. We're making extra payments every month for the last every couple of months at least for the last year or two. It doesn't get returned to the municipalities. It improves the standing of the ambulance service. At some point, we may be able to lower the per capita. I don't know. It's been, like it's been talked about. It's hard to get people. We have to pay more each year. Nobody can promise that, but the extra money goes back or stays with the ambulance service and pays off debt or makes better standing financially to the service.
which that makes sense. Again, I'm just putting out in the contract that there's no provisions that ties you to doing that. I think- What's in the bylaw here?
You mentioned while Chad's looking at his notes, you mentioned that you're breaking connections with health partners. Why is that? I mean, you're the feeder for health partners.
They gave us notice that they were no longer interested in providing a service after this merge.
Does that include, because they were doing like HR services or something for you as well.
Yeah.
Does that include all that?
Everything.
So who are you looking to go with?
So there's a physician that lives locally from the Twin Cities that is interested for medical direction. And then we found out that our insurance company actually provides HR services. And then from the payroll, pay benefits, that sort of stuff, Carlson will pick up that piece of it. And then there's a company called ERBA, ERBA, that will help us with, they have more than just benefits. It's geared just towards EMS, so it's a nationwide consortium. So we are able to get, like, for instance, Blue Cross Blue Shield, it's a better plan, but because it's offered nationwide to all these EMS services, it costs us less, but it's a higher gold standard plan, or however you want to say it. So,
Feeder group.
yep. So that's what we're looking at. So.
That should be good for recruiting purposes, I would think.
Exactly. And one piece of it too, is this company also finds grants for us to help us pay for different benefits for our staff. So that was really exciting. And it's not where you pay up front for the grant writing. They take 10 or 15% after they find it. So it's a little bit different in regards to other grant writers. So it gives them a little more incentive to find stuff for us. So.
I guess the only other question that I didn't see anywhere in the bylaws is any nepotism clauses. So meaning anyone on the executive leadership committee having direct relationships with those that are employed through the ambulance service. Is there thoughts about that?
don't believe there's anybody on either board that's got a relationship with the services, there.
Other than Ed is
Oh,
my
yeah.
father-in-law,
He's your father-in-law.
right?
That seems like a pretty big one, but
But the executive committee won't, they won't be doing the budget. They won't be approving any of that sort of stuff that would include any type of payroll or benefits or any sort.
they will discipline.
I'm not, I don't know that, I guess that isn't.
Well, if they don't, then where does discipline come from? If it's the leader of the organization.
Right, no.
And I'm not saying that
No,
that's
no,
how we
I
wanna
know,
be,
but
but-
we hadn't, that hasn't been, the discipline piece hasn't
You
been.
know, there also is a board of the whole, I mean, each municipality will have a representative on the entire board. The executive committee was going to be cut to every 8 members. Just logistically, better making decisions and getting the meetings and things, and rather than dragging the entire board together every time we want to make a decision.
Which that makes sense, and I'm just asking the question, should somebody that is a direct relationship to the leader of the organization be on that executive board?
Could that be in a policy for the service?
I don't, I guess we haven't appointed an executive committee, the entire board will elect that or appoint that executive committee. When we have our annual meeting, the entire board, we will pick, I would imagine, president, vice president, or chair, vice chair, however you want it. I don't know, I guess that might be a question for the attorney, or if there's any issue someone has, they can certainly bring it forward.
All right, I don't have any more questions. So this was just a discussion, right, Ben, on the agenda, and then I assume is this coming back for a vote to move forward?
You can vote on it now. I think your guys' deadline is the 30th.
The 30th?
I think the question that Chad's referring to is who's going to be Nikki's direct supervisor, because she will not be autonomous.
No, it'll have to be the executive board I mean, that's the way I envisioned it.
I suppose there will be a chairperson to the entire board, and that would certainly assume that person would also be the chair of the executive committee.
Because that's been brought up in years past several times, and generally speaking, it was just poo-pooed.
But my boss has always been, since I've been here, has always been the hospital. And still
Yes.
is until the end of the year, so.
And then okay, so this isn't in place yet at the end of the year or whenever the hospital contract is terminated or whatever. Who would be your boss then?
I
Board of
envision it as
directors?
the whole board of directors and I would
Because even
anticipate,
under here in section 3.1A, general powers of the board of directors to employ and determine terms of employment from medical service personnel.
Right.
So,
should be the board as a whole. I envision though the everyday, I have a truck that has $6,000 worth of repairs that needs to be done. I'm not going to call every single board member. I envision contacting the executive committee and letting them know and, does this make sense to move forward, on this truck? Anybody have any other ideas type thing, but
Okay, I guess I'll entertain the motion to move forward with the merger.
So moved.
Second,
Any further discussion? Do you want a roll call? Okay, roll call.
Robot,
no,
Van Blarcom,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Lem,
Yes.
Manner,
yes.
Elkins.
Yes.
I almost said Lennon, but out of habit.
All right, so the motion has been approved for the merger of the two ambulance services. Thank you, Nikki.
yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is a pay application number 2 for South Industrial Park. And not a, yeah.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, it's good to see you. Table. With SCH, we're working on the project project manager. Actually, I didn't come prepared to talk about this pay application, but I was just out there. Project's progressing well. Actually, they're potentially doing curb Thursday or Friday this week, depending on the curbing contractor. This pay application, I think, was for mainly water and sewer pipe, some excavation. We did go through and check the quantities and agree with what's been presented.
And that's for $313,224.15, according to this, right?
Perfect. Yeah.
I guess I had a question. I know that there was some discussion about 46 coming out of Four Corners up here.
Mhm.
If I remember correctly, part of that plan is to add in the turn lane. Is that correct?
Actually, the turn lane is part of your project,
Okay,
but they had the pre-con for the Highway 46 today.
Yeah.
And I actually attended that, and they're starting right after the 4th
okay,
into that project. So as part of your project, you actually build the turn lane, but the final pavement will come with Highway 46
okay.
project.
And the timing is all still lining up to make that.
Yeah, sounds like it'll work out well.
I guess I would entertain a motion for pay application number 2 for the Salt Industrial Park.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. That last payment. All right, we'll go into closed session. Wisconsin statute 19.85B, operator's license. Considering dismissal, demotion, licensing, or discipline of any public employee or person licensed by a board or commission, or the investigation of charges against such person, or considering the grant or denial of tenure for the university faculty member, and the taking of formal action for any such matter, provided that the faculty member or other public employee or person licensed is given actual notice of any evidentiary hearing which may be held prior to the final action being taken and or meeting at which the final action may be taken. The notice shall contain a statement that the person has the right to demand that the evidentiary hearing or meeting be held in open session. This paragraph in par F do not apply to any such evidentiary hearing or meeting where the employee or person licensed requests that an open session be held. Okay.
Motion to go into closed session.
Second.
All those in favor?
Roll call.
Roll call.
Robot,
Yes.
Van Blaricom,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Leonard,
Yes.
Lanham,
Yes.
Manning,